You know the kind of village that measures its stories in footsteps, not years? There's one like that, tucked into a pocket of land where people still knot their shoelaces twice and keep their spoons next to their hearts. In that village, names sometimes wander off, not because people forget them. Names, as they tell it, have a way of slipping through the seam between places, like light slipping through the crack under a door. A child can call herself Mira at breakfast, cross the hill to the market, and come back in the evening as Mira without the S. It's small at first, a missing syllable, a blank space when someone should be called. Then suddenly the whole sentence we live by loses rhythm. I came to this village for something that sounded practical, to fix a sundial. Practical things teach you strange truths, so they say. The sundial belonged to an old schoolmaster who had the habit of writing every lost name he found on a piece of paper and folding it into the drawer under his desk. He kept the drawer locked, not because he feared the names, but because he didn't want them to get lonely. When I asked him why the sundial was wrong, he tapped the paper drawer and said, "Shadows forget where they began. Names forget the path they took." So I listened. The villagers told stories like the rest of the world tells recipes, with exact measurements and a touch of superstition. Some said the horizon took what it liked. Others said ambitious children traded syllables for lucky stones. No one offered anything I hadn't heard before, until a woman with a jar of preserved sunrise leaned forward and said, "If it's true you can fix things, send something small beyond the hill and see if it comes back." It sounded like a child's dare, but the schoolmaster's instruction was precise. Send something small, mark it, and follow the path it travels. If it returns, you will know how the village measures itself. If it doesn't, then names will keep slipping. I chose a pebble, smooth, gray as a thought. On it, I wrote my name, because I wanted to know whether I would be the one to come back different. I placed it on the river where it left the village and watched it catch the current like a secret. Then I walked. People imagined a journey as movement from A to B. That's the comfortable version. My walk was more like following a rumor. Each farm I passed had the exact same two songs on their lips, but in different keys. Every road pretended it was leading somewhere else. Signs pointed to towns I had never heard of. A compass I found in a traveler's pouch spun politely and then refused to be of use. None of that made sense. None of it mattered. Because after a day, and then another, the pattern began to show itself. The signs that had seemed contradictory were only different ways of saying the same thing. The songs, once I listened for them, were counting. 1, 2, 3, always returning to the same note. The roads were braided threads of a single cloth. I realized, with a small, rising shock, that I was walking lines that curved around each other, like sentences that answer themselves. When at last I reached the place where the river met a marsh, where the pebble may have chosen to sleep, the marsh didn't look like the end of anything. It looked like a pause. I waited. The pebble didn't appear. But days are generous in country places. They spill into one another. On the fourth afternoon, a child kicked a pebble toward me, exactly the sort I had sent, and on its gray face there, under the mud, my name smudged but legible. I had expected triumph. Instead, I felt slightly foolish. The pebble had come back not by magic, but because the current had hugged a coastline, been caught by an eddy, and looped, as rivers do when land tells water to keep its secrets tight. The world hadn't performed anything special. The path had. That pebble and that child taught me two things, one obvious, and one I think you will like better. The obvious is that paths can loop. If you walk long enough and pay attention, the place you left and the place you arrive at can be the same. That's how most people prove the world is round. You travel and you return. Fine, but that's the kindergarten version. The not-so-obvious is the reason a world becomes round, the reason names return or are lost, is that the world is less about shape and more about return. Roundness is a story property. It belongs to anything that can send something out and eventually receive it back changed. A letter, a pebble, a kindness. If what you send returns altered, you begin to understand the curvature. The villagers, in their knot-tying way, had distilled that into a superstition. If you send something honest into the path and it comes back, your name stays whole. If it doesn't, you lose syllables. It is a strange measure, but it is honest. The world being round isn't merely geometry. It's the guarantee that actions have arcs and come home. So when the schoolmaster finally unlocked his drawer for me, and yes, he did because I had returned the pebble, he opened a tiny library of folded slips, names of children, lovers, fathers, exiles. Each had a small smudge where it had been written, folded, unfolded, written again. The roundness lived in those creases. The stories had come back to be read. I left the village with the sundial fixed, but my watch lying on the bench. I kept instead the pebble in my pocket. It makes a soft click when I walk now, as if reminding me, things you send out are not proofs. They are promises. The world is round because it receives returns. So here's the last thing I'll do, and it's a quiet dare for you. Pick the smallest thing you can spare. A name, a word, a kindness. Send it somewhere real and wait to see what comes home. The shape of the world is less important than the answer it gives. If the pebble returns, you will know. If it doesn't, you'll learn something else. Either way, the path will teach you what the map never could. What comes back to you when you send something true?